noticed that, like, the coziest, most picturesque small towns on television are always exactly one spilled secret away from a total psychological collapse?
Oh, without fail.
Right.
Yeah.
It is just fascinating how the smell of pine needles and fresh maple syrup and quaint diner coffee is almost always a cover for, like, deep, unhealed generational trauma.
It's the aesthetic of innocence masking the reality of absolute delusion.
Yes, exactly. So, welcome back to the Snark Side, babes. I am so incredibly, ridiculously, emotionally thrilled that you are sitting right here on the couch with us right now.
Truly, we need this today.
I literally could not wait to get to these mics. I needed this chat. We needed this. You needed this.
That is the bread and butter of this show. And
Mhm.
honestly, before we even lay the groundwork for today's specific brand of chaos, we need to do a massive, highly specific shout out.
Oh my God, yes, the analytics.
Right, so we just found out that this show is apparently absolutely huge in Canada right now.
I love that for us.
So, to the new Canadian listener who just found us, who is, grabbing a blanket and joining the Snark Squad, cheers.
Yes, cheers to you. We are so happy you are here to spiral with us, babes. And speaking of cheers, you already know what time it is.
The drink check.
It is time for the drink check. I am holding in my hand what is arguably the most perfect, classic, reliable beverage ever created by human hands. The vodka cran.
Basic.
Stop! It is here, it is ice cold, it is aggressively pink, and it is exactly what my nervous system requires to endure the family dynamics we are about to unpack.
I mean, I have one too, so I can't judge too harshly.
It is perfection. No notes, zero notes on this drink, unlike us.
Yeah, let's be entirely analytical about this choice. It is also incredibly, almost painfully predictable for us.
Whatever, it's safe.
It is the basic cable of cocktails. It is safe, it is ubiquitous, and it requires zero mixological prowess.
But you need that.
You really do.
Yeah.
When you are staring down the barrel of the kind of emotional manipulation we are going to discuss today, you actually need a basic, predictable anchor to keep you tethered to reality.
Exactly.
You cannot be sipping a complex, smoked mezcal old-fashioned when you are trying to understand why these characters are actively ruining their own lives.
Yeah.
You need tart, you need cold, and you need simple.
Exactly. It grounds me. It brings me back to earth. But before we even get into the woods at the crossing, we need to take a quick detour.
Oh boy. Personal chaos time.
Yes, we have to talk about our own chaotic lives for a second. Because, babes, this show, especially this specific set of events, is soothing absolutely toxic family dynamics.
Rampant toxicity.
And it really got me thinking and feeling deeply about a specific trope. Like, why does every single TV mom, or honestly just TV parent in general, feel like a borderline or sometimes full-blown narcissist?
From a structural standpoint, it makes for incredibly efficient television. Conflict drives the plot. And there is no conflict more universal or deeply ingrained than the failure of the people who are supposed to protect you. But I know you are not just asking about the narrative mechanics.
I'm not. Because analytically, yes, I get the narrative efficiency, but emotionally, low-key,
It hits close to home.
in my own lived experience, it feels painfully, terrifyingly true. Like it triggers something so deep inside my soul when I watch these parental dynamics play out on screen.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I am just sitting there on my couch thinking, wait, I have had this exact conversation. I have been in this exact emotional trap.
The pattern is aggressively validated by reality.
Yeah.
I mean, we love our families, but the sheer lack of self-awareness in that parenting demographic is staggering.
It's wild.
Case in point, you want to talk about triggering parental interactions. Let me set the scene for you. I had a wild FaceTime call with my mother right after work today.
Oh my God, yes. I am so ready. Spill everything.
Okay, so picture this. I am exhausted.
Mm.
I just finished a 10-hour day at the clinic.
The world.
And to understand the physical and emotional toll of this, you have to understand the mechanics of what we do. I have spent 10 hours hunched over, operating in a microscopic field.
Millimeters away from a nerve.
Exactly. Managing the acute physical anxiety of a schedule full of patients who would literally rather be anywhere else on Earth than in my chair.
It's so draining.
My lower back is screaming, my trapezius muscles are locked, my soul is depleted, and I am covered in invisible aerosolized dental debris.
Gross, but true.
I have just walked through my front door. All I require, the only thing standing between me and a total systemic shutdown, is 30 minutes of absolute deafening silence.
Just to transition out of doctor mode?
Right. Back into a functional human being. I haven't even taken my shoes off. Then my phone rings.
No, the absolute worst sound in the world when you just want silence. The FaceTime chime.
It is the FaceTime chime. And it's my mother.
Yeah.
Now, context is key here. My mother is retired. She is financially incredibly comfortable. She lives a life of absolute curated leisure. Her biggest daily hurdle is deciding whether to go to the morning Pilates class or the afternoon water aerobics.
Literally a dream life, babes, a life of absolute softness.
Correct. So I answer the phone, bracing myself, hoping it's just a quick check-in, and the woman is frantic.
Wait, like actually frantic?
I mean physically frantic.
Yeah.
She is pacing around his sunroom, holding the phone at that weird under-chin angle that older people do when they're distressed.
I know the exact angle. It's terrifying.
And she is fully spiraling. Her breathing is shallow. And why is she spiraling? Because the interior decorator that she hired,
Oh, no.
mind you, paid a completely absurd retainer to. The decorator ordered the custom silk drapes for the tertiary guest bedroom in pearl white instead of alabaster white.
No, please tell me you are joking. Please tell me there was an actual emergency beneath the drapes.
I wish I had the creative capacity to invent this level of manufactured crisis. There was no underlying emergency. It was purely the drapes. She is talking at a mile a minute. The pacing of the call is relentless. She is asking me, her exhausted child, what she should do.
As if you're a textile expert.
She is declaring that her entire weekend is ruined. Ruined. Because the alabaster had a slightly warmer, creamier undertone that would have brought out the threading in the decorative throw pillows.
Oh my God.
Whereas the pearl is too stark and reads almost blue in the morning light. And I am just sitting there, still in my scrubs, smelling faintly of acrylic and cavi wipes.
Having spent the entire day extracting infected molars.
Exactly. From people in actual throbbing physical agony.
Yeah.
I'm just staring at her through the screen.
I am physically exhausted just hearing the cadence of that. That is so violently out of touch. How do you even respond to that mid-conversation?
You don't, really.
Because my immediate visceral reaction would have been to start crying. Not out of sadness for the drapes, obviously, but out of pure, unadulterated frustration.
It's an emotional hostage situation.
It really is. Your feelings of needing to decompress, your physical exhaustion from performing microscopic surgery all day, that is so deeply valid. And then she drops alabaster white on you.
That is exactly the mechanism. It wasn't a conversation. The ransom was my remaining emotional energy.
How did you even handle it?
I literally just went completely dead-eyed. The lights were on, but nobody was home. I employed the classic gray rock method.
Yes, gray rocking is the only way.
I just let her talk. I gave her a few perfectly timed mms and wows. That's really tough.
Oh, that's so funny.
But the relentless nature of her panic. She needed me to co-sign her delusion that this was a catastrophe. When I finally managed to extract myself and hang up the phone, I had to physically lay down on my hardwood floor for 10 minutes.
I am validating you so hard right now.
I just stared at the ceiling, feeling the cold wood against my spine, letting the absurdity wash over me.
You absolutely needed that floor time to regulate your nervous system.
The privilege required to experience that as an inconvenience is just staggering.
And it's so wild how we carry that chaotic, ungrounded energy into the rest of our night. It just spirals. You go from being a highly competent medical professional to feeling like a drained battery because someone couldn't handle a textile variation.
Exactly.
But honestly, speaking of the clinic and her actual real-life jobs, we need to pivot for a second because we got a DM from the Snark squad.
Oh, the dentistry DM.
Yes, and I actually really want to read it and address it because it made me feel a lot of deeply protective things.
By all means, read it. Let's do some community housekeeping before we get into the fictional drama.
Okay, so this listener messaged us and said, "Hey, love the space you guys have created. Quick question. You both always talk about being dentists, but you sound sort of jaded when you mention the clinic. Do you actually like dentistry?"
Pause for dramatic effect.
And I just had to take a massive stabilizing breath when I read that because my immediate emotional, fiercely defensive reaction is yes.
Yes, we absolutely unequivocally love being dentists.
Without a doubt. Like, you have to understand, babes, we worked so incredibly hard for this career. You don't even know the tears, the sweat, the literal blood during dental school.
And the crippling student debt. Let's not forget that.
I am so fiercely protective of our profession because it is such a massive part of my core identity. I love my patients. I love the intricate tactile science of it.
It is highly rewarding.
It is. I love the immediate gratification of taking someone who is in pain or someone who is deeply insecure about their smile and fixing it right then and there. It is so profoundly rewarding, and it breaks my heart to think we sound jaded.
I think our dry delivery sometimes masks the underlying passion, but the answer is a resounding yes.
We just have a very dark, survival-based sense of humor because the general public is wild and healthcare is exhausting.
Analytically speaking, breaking down the sheer mechanics of the career, it is one of the most logically sound professions you could possibly choose in the healthcare sector.
Right.
Think about the lifestyle architecture. It is incredible. We have unparalleled flexibility. We don't have to work weekends unless we actively choose to.
Exactly.
We get to clock out and actually leave our work at the office. I am not taking a patient's chart home to ruminate over it at midnight.
And let's not ignore the ego boost and the prestige.
Sure.
We get the title of doctor, we get the respect, without having to deal with the life or death, code blue hospital mess that medical doctors go through.
Nobody is flatlining in my chair. The environment is highly structured, predictably paced, and incredibly clean.
Yes. That is the dream. We get the prestige without the 3 a.m. emergency room trauma shifts. We get to help people and then go home and sleep in our own beds.
It's a very sanitized form of healthcare.
And I remember those chaotic dental school study nights. We would literally be up at 2 a.m., hopped up on synthetic energy drinks.
Bonding over carving wax teeth to exact millimeter specifications.
And crying over the intricacies of head and neck neuroanatomy. The sheer trauma of memorizing the cranial nerves bonded us for life. We chose this path, we bled for it, and we genuinely love it.
But, and there's always, but when we deal with reality, let's be entirely transparent here.
Oh, here we go.
We are very comfortable the lights are staying on, but we are not making Beverly Hills plastic surgeon money.
We really aren't.
We are not buying private islands or chartering yachts. So if any dental supply companies or high-end electric toothbrush brands or literally anyone with a marketing budget wants to sponsor this show,
Babes, our DMs are wide open.
please fund our reality TV addiction so we can keep analyzing delusion.
Seriously, send us the sonic toothbrushes. We will take them. But anyway, thank you to the listener who sent that DM because it really allowed us to reflect on our foundation.
It was a good reality check.
And honestly, right now, having decompressed from the day, feeling slightly tipsy from this perfectly mixed vodka cran, I am feeling deeply reflective about life choices.
And ready to judge.
Entirely, unapologetically ready to rip into Sullivan's Crossing Season 4, Episode 2, Open Wounds.
Let's get into the absolute mess of it all. Because this specific episode, the pacing was glacial.
So slow.
I felt like I was watching maple syrup drip out of a tree in real time for half of it. But the interpersonal mess, the psychological delusion occurring beneath the surface.
It was incredibly rich.
There's a very specific, slow burn kind of chaos.
Oh my God, I was literally dying to discuss this with you all week. Dying. Because you are exactly right. The pacing is a slow, meandering stroll through the Nova Scotia woods. But the emotional damage happening right beneath the surface is astronomical.
It's intense.
And it all perfectly ties into the central thesis. I want to frame this whole discussion around how characters mask their deeply selfish choices as protection or care.
A very common mechanism in this show.
Okay, so let's start right at the top. We open with a classic, deeply tragic girls' night. Sydney is crying her absolute eyes out over her breakup with Rafe. And Lola, sweet, perpetually annoying Lola, is whining about being lonely because Jacob left for Calgary.
It's a tableau of mid-20s misery. And Maggie, in her infinite neurosurgeon wisdom, looking at two women who are actively grieving the loss of their romantic attachments, decides the cure for deep emotional heartbreak and profound loneliness is handing out fortune cookies.
I know.
Because nothing says, I am holding space for your trauma. Quite like mass-produced, stale-baked goods containing generic platitudes printed in a factory.
I actually completely emotionally relate to this, though. I really do.
You would hand out fortune cookies.
Well, sometimes when your friend is having a total snot-nosed breakdown, you just panic. Your brain short-circuits and you try to offer any kind of tangible distraction.
I suppose.
Sydney needed to cry, she needed to let the physical stress of the breakup leave her body, and Maggie is just clumsily trying to create a comforting vibe.
But we do need to analyze these specific fortunes, because they were basically the writers hitting the audience over the head with a narrative sledgehammer. Let's look at the mechanics of the foreshadowing here. Lola opens hers and gets, every cloud has a silver lining.
Which is so dumb.
Which is the most basic live, laugh, love wooden sign you could possibly buy at a discount home goods store. It means absolutely nothing.
Literally nothing. Then Maggie opens hers and gets, better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all.
Ouch.
Which, Ouch. That is a direct, targeted hit considering her current marital limbo and the fact that she is actively avoiding her legal husband.
It's very on the nose.
And then Sydney, who is actively sobbing over a man, gets, "You will soon find yourself in a romantic encounter."
Naturally.
And her immediate reaction is to aggressively swear off romance entirely, which, as anyone who has ever consumed media knows, means she is going to trip and fall face first into a new, incredibly attractive man's arms by episode 5 at the latest.
It is an absolute guarantee. It's the law of narrative physics. But then they do the thing.
Oh no, the pact.
They do the most cursed, statistically doomed thing you can possibly do in a friend group in your 20s.
Yep.
Lola, feeling the emotional vulnerability of the room, suggests they make a pact. Let's make a pact to always stick together.
I screamed. I physically recoiled from my television.
It's so foolish.
I need you to validate this for me, babes. Isn't making a "we will always stick together" pact in your early 20s basically a legally binding guarantee to the universe that someone is moving out of state in 3 to 5 business days?
It is the absolute kiss of death for a friend group. You never, ever say it out loud. It is like pulling the pin on a social grenade.
It really is.
It's hubris, pure hubris. The universe hears that kind of arrogant assumption of permanence and immediately starts printing plane tickets.
Exactly.
Making a pact like that is essentially a coping mechanism to manage the terrifying reality that your lives are diverging. You say, "We will always be together," precisely because you subconsciously know you won't be.
Oh, that's deep.
As soon as Lola uttered those words, the narrative math was solved. I knew one of them was leaving town immediately. But let's move away from the inevitable dissolution of their friendship and talk about the real annoyance of the episode. The annulment annoyance.
Yeah.
Because the Liam and Maggie drama is actively shaving years off my life, and we need to unpack the legal and emotional mechanics of it.
Oh my God, Cal. Poor, sweet, ridiculously patient Cal. He is literally having to play messenger and pseudo-lawyer for the woman he is desperately in love with, who is still legally bound to another man.
It's humiliating for him.
So the core conflict is that Liam tracks Maggie down at the crossing. Maggie is completely flustered and says, "I need to talk to you about the annulment paperwork."
Right.
And Liam, with absolutely zero urgency, is just lingering around town like a tourist. And through this conversation, we find out Maggie literally ripped up her marriage certificate years ago.
She physically destroyed the document. Who does that?
He just tore it up.
An impulsive, highly dramatic person who fundamentally misunderstands how government bureaucracy works. Ripping up a piece of paper does not dissolve a legal contract.
But she was mad.
Now, I have been deep in the online community forums, reading the threads, and the consensus is loud, clear, and angry. Everyone is collectively yelling at their screens. "Just get a divorce, girl. It is not that deep. Sign the dissolution papers and move on with your life."
See, I totally disagree with the internet on this.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I agree with the internet. Just get the divorce. The mechanism of a divorce is simple. It ends the marriage.
No. See, I am going to push back on this so hard. I am fiercely defending Maggie on this specific emotional point.
Defend her then.
I totally get it. I understand the psychology behind it. You are looking at it purely as a legal mechanism, but you have to look at the emotional mechanism.
We're on.
An annulment means legally it never happened. It is a void ab initio. It completely deletes the mistake from the historical record.
Which is a fantasy.
It's an absolute do-over button. A divorce means she has to carry that failure forever. She has to check the divorce box on medical forms, on tax returns, on loan applications.
That's just paperwork.
But a divorce acknowledges that the marriage was a reality, that she made a massive misjudgment, and for her, she feels so profoundly betrayed by Liam's abandonment that she wants to erase the entire timeline.
I mean,
She wants to pretend those years didn't exist. That is a highly valid trauma response.
it is a valid emotional desire, but it is legally tedious and practically absurd. She is stalling her actual present-day life with Cal to fight a retroactive battle over semantics.
I guess.
And let's talk about why everyone is actually so frustrated by this plotline. It's not just the legal paperwork dragging on. It's the absolute cavernous lack of chemistry between Maggie and Liam.
Oh, there's none.
I am watching these two interact, and I'm getting absolutely nothing. There's no spark, there's no underlying tension, there's no residual heat of a scorned lover.
It's so awkward.
Trying to find chemistry between them is like rubbing two wet sponges together and expecting to start a forest fire. Compare that to her scenes with Cal. It's night and day.
It's so painfully true. The show gives us these sepia-toned flashbacks to try and convince us they had this wild, passionate, adventurous romance.
Running with the bulls in Pamplona or whatever.
Exactly. But in the present day, they interact like awkward coworkers at a mandatory HR compliance seminar. There is no fire.
Precisely. And the fans are exhausted by it. The viewers are so tired of watching Cal constantly having to fight off the ghosts of Maggie's past.
Poor Cal.
First, we had to endure the entire Andrew saga, and now we have to deal with Liam lingering around waiting for a visa issue to clear up. It's redundant plotting.
Totally redundant.
If you are going to construct a love triangle, the third point of the triangle needs to actually pose a legitimate threat to the core relationship. Liam is not a threat.
He really isn't.
He is a mild, bureaucratic inconvenience. Honestly, at this point, the writers need to get Cal a new love interest. Let Maggie sweat a little bit. Let Cal be actively desired by someone who isn't drowning in legal paperwork and emotional baggage.
Wait, I actually love that idea. Bring in a hot, uncomplicated, emotionally available park ranger. Let Maggie watch Cal move on and realize what she is losing by stalling.
It would fix the pacing immediately.
But, okay, we have to talk about the bear trap incident, because the mechanics of this scene sent me into absolute orbit.
Oh, the bear trap. Yeah.
Liam, while wandering aimlessly around the woods that he clearly does not respect or understand, steps in an old bear trap. He gets his foot stuck.
Because of course he does.
He eventually limps into the outpost, bleeding profusely. Cal and Ben walk in. Cal rightly points out that there is a massive amount of blood, and Maggie, utilizing her medical training, says he needs stitches immediately.
And what does Liam, the rugged journalist, say?
Oh.
He flat out refuses to go to the emergency room because he claims he doesn't want to sit around a waiting room all day.
It's so stupid.
It is the absolute peak of toxic, stubborn machismo. Let's break down the logic.
Please do.
I am bleeding profusely from a rusted metal trap in the wilderness, exposing myself to tetanus and massive bacterial infection. But I couldn't possibly be inconvenienced by seeking modern medical intervention.
It's unhinged.
It is a pathological need to appear tough at the expense of basic survival.
It is so infuriating. It's that classic trope where the guy thinks ignoring pain makes him stoic, when really it just makes him a massive liability to everyone around him.
Exactly.
And then I have to completely drag him for this quote. Earlier in the episode, Maggie asks him about keeping souvenirs from his travels, and he looks her dead in the eye with complete sincerity and says, "I prefer to live in the moment, not in the past."
Gag. I physically recoiled from my screen.
Right. It is giving guy who brings an acoustic guitar to a crowded house party and starts playing Wonderwall without being asked energy.
It really is.
It is so deeply pretentious and hollow. But anyway, because his ego refuses the ER, Maggie compromises and offers to take him to the local clinic in Mahone Bay.
Which is a whole other issue.
And when they finally get there, the place is absolutely packed, standing room only. People are spilling out of the chairs.
Because, as the script very pointedly ensures we understand, there is a massive doctor shortage in the region.
Which is so sad.
Which, to be fair to the show, is a very real, very accurate socioeconomic issue for rural Canadian areas. So Maggie, trying to flex her neurosurgeon credentials while they languish in the waiting room, hones in on a kid named Sam, who is sitting nearby.
Yeah, the cute little kid.
The kid has a headache and a distinct rash on his face. Maggie goes over, feels his neck for lymph node swelling, looks closely at his cheeks, and casually diagnoses him with parvovirus B19.
Slap cheeks syndrome.
It's a casual on-the-fly waiting room diagnosis to remind the audience and Liam that she went to a prestigious medical school.
Honestly, it was a slay. I love a competent medical moment where a female character gets to show off her brain. But analytically speaking, can we talk about what parvovirus actually is? Because it sounds terrifying when she says it out loud.
It sounds exotic, but parvovirus B19 is actually an incredibly common pediatric viral infection. The mechanism of it is fascinating.
Hit me with the science.
The virus specifically targets and attacks the erythroid progenitor cells in the bone marrow.
Which are?
Those are the cells that eventually become red blood cells. It spreads through respiratory droplets, much like a cold. The hallmark symptom, which Maggie spots, is that bright red rash on the cheeks, which is actually caused by immune complex deposition in the skin as the body fights the virus.
Oh, so it's the immune system reacting.
Exactly. It looks alarming, like the child was literally slapped, hence the name, but it usually resolves on its own.
That's a relief.
Though I must point out the absurdity of a highly specialized brain surgeon confidently diagnosing a common pediatric rash in a waiting room. It's a bit of a stretch of her specialty, but it serves the plot.
Look at you at the medical breakdown. I love it. But here is where the entire episode completely derailed me.
Uh-oh.
This is the moment I gasped, paused the TV, and had to physically walk around my living room.
The comment.
Liam comes out of his appointment, having finally gotten his tetanus shot, sees Maggie softly interacting with the sick kid, and says to her with this loaded, emotional tone,
I always thought you'd make a good mom.
"Yes." The narrative anvil dropped right on our heads. I panicked.
You really did.
I immediately grabbed my phone and went to the group chat. Are the writers actually doing this? Are they setting up a whose baby is it cliffhanger for this season?
It's a terrifying thought.
Because if Maggie ends up pregnant and we have to endure a grueling 18-episode season of is the baby Cal's or is it Liam's while they are still trying to sort out an annulment, I will genuinely lose my mind. It is too much mess.
It is a very real, mathematically high probability.
Don't say that.
When a soap-adjacent drama drops a specifically targeted line like you'd make a good mom to a female lead who is currently romantically torn between two men, it is rarely an accident of dialogue. It is Chekhov's uterus.
Oh my God, stop.
If they bring up maternal instincts in Act 1, she is getting pregnant by Act 3. It is a tried and true mechanism to force the love triangle to a breaking point.
I hate it.
But let's table the pregnancy panic for segment 4, because we need to properly analyze the missing watch mess.
Ugh, Quincy Carlson. Just hearing his name raises my cortisol levels.
The worst kind of character.
This man is the absolute epitome of the insufferable, entitled tourist. He loses a watch that he claims has immense, irreplaceable sentimental value.
And his immediate zero hesitation reaction is to blame Ben. Ben, the new, incredibly sweet teenager who is just trying to earn a few bucks breaking down cardboard boxes in the back room.
Quincy is abhorrent.
He represents the parasitic nature of tourism in rural economies. People who view the locals not as human beings, but as subservient background characters in their vacation.
Exactly.
But let's look at the actual sequence of events here, because the psychology is wild. The watch goes missing. Maggie and Cal bend over backwards to accommodate this man's rage.
They really do.
Maggie searches his room top to bottom. Cal tears apart the lost and found. The local police actually arrive.
Which is insane.
Let's be clear. It is a massive overreaction and a misuse of public resources for a misplaced item. Fine. Quincy points the finger directly, aggressively at Ben.
It made me so mad.
The cop asks to search Ben's backpack. Ben, who remains remarkably, almost unsettlingly calm, completely consents to the search.
Which made me think he was innocent.
They dump his bag. They find nothing. Quincy remains furious and entirely unconvinced.
And Frank is fiercely defending Ben the entire time. He is standing between Ben and the cop, saying he's a good kid who just needs a little guidance and an opportunity.
He really sticks his neck out.
It made me so emotional because Frank is stepping into that pure, protective father figure role. But then, the twist. The absolute betrayal of a twist.
The twist that completely recontextualizes the entire sequence.
Tell him what happens.
Later on, the dust is settled. Ben is leaving the outpost for the day. He politely asks Frank if he should come back tomorrow for his shift. Frank warmly says, sure.
Yeah.
Ben walks out the door, and Cal, watching quietly from a distance, sees Ben casually, deliberately drop the stolen watch by a flower bed.
I shrieked. I felt so personally betrayed. I was rooting for you, Ben.
You really were.
We were all rooting for you. How could you do this to Frank and Cal, who just put their own reputations on the line to defend your honor against the police? It is self-sabotage.
It is entirely self-sabotage, but let's analyze the absolute audacity and the psychological mechanism of this move.
Break it down.
He stole the watch. He hid it, presumably somewhere on his person that wasn't his bag, which takes calculated effort.
Right.
He sat through a highly stressful police interrogation. He allowed a physical search of his property. He maintained his absolute innocence to Frank, a man who trusts him.
He lied straight to his face.
And then, after executing this flawless heist, instead of keeping it to pawn for cash or selling it to help his struggling family, he just unceremoniously dumps it in the dirt by a flower bed on his way out.
It makes no sense.
The psychology of that is fascinating. It's an act of pure chaotic rebellion. It was never about financial gain.
That is exactly it. It's a cry for help.
Absolutely.
He is acting out because his home life is so completely out of his control. He feels powerless, so he creates a scenario where he has the secret power. He controls the outcome of the watch.
It's an illusion of control.
But it puts Cal in such a terrible, agonizing moral position because now he knows the truth. Cal knows Ben as a thief, but he also knows Ben is a kid in pain. Oh, it's so messy.
Very messy.
But speaking of messy decisions that detonate your own life, let's pivot conceptually back to Lola, because remember that sacred, unbreakable blood oath pact they made about 24 hours ago in the show's timeline?
Yes, the pact that mathematically guaranteed someone was leaving.
Right. So Lola gets called into her boss's office, and she gets completely unceremoniously fired from her internship. Axed. Done. Pack your desk.
And why is that?
Because she took the kids under her supervision to the crossing without getting the proper liability waivers signed by their parents.
An egregious error.
Which, as someone who owns a business and runs a medical clinic, I fully, completely understand the boss's reaction.
Oh, the liability is terrifying.
The liability mechanics of taking minors off-site without legal consent is a nightmare. A kid could break an ankle, and the company would be sued into oblivion.
So the firing is justified.
And completely justified, but for Lola, it is emotionally devastating.
It is a massive blow to her ego and her nascent career. And how does she handle this devastating setback?
You know she doesn't handle it well.
Does she take a moment to regroup? Does she update her resume and vigorously apply for new local internships?
Nope.
Does she lean heavily on the friends who literally just swore a solemn oath to support each other through thick and thin?
No! I was cackling at my screen.
It's so funny.
She immediately, without a single second thought, calls Sydney and Maggie and is basically like, well, the internship is gone, so there is literally nothing keeping me in this town, so I am moving to Calgary to be with Jacob.
Flawless logic.
She packed her bags before the fortune cookie from girls' night was even fully digested. I cannot handle the whiplash.
It is honestly the most realistic, brutal portrayal of a 20-something's attention span and loyalty I have ever seen committed to screen.
It really is.
The logic is flawless in its selfishness. We will be best friends forever, and I will never leave you. Unless a boy in another province texts me back, in which case you're all completely dead to me.
Exactly. It's hilarious. But her rapid departure creates a narrative vacuum, much like another major character who is mysteriously absent from the screen.
Oh, yes.
Let's talk about the metadrama happening behind the scenes. Where in the world is Sully?
Okay, yes, the tea on this is so good.
So within the narrative of the show, the characters casually drop the information that Sully, whose name is literally on the wooden sign of the town, he is the titular character, is conveniently away in Ireland.
Just a quick trip to Ireland?
Right. Maggie and Frank are trying to sort out the logistics of setting up the nature reserve, and Maggie just sighs heavily and says, I just wish he gave us a bit more notice. And the internet caught the subtext of this immediately.
Oh, the online forums are ablaze with the production tea on this one.
Spill it.
Because if you follow the industry news behind the fourth wall, we all know that the actor Scott Patterson dropped out of the show abruptly right before they began filming the season.
It was so unexpected.
It was highly unexpected, and fans are convinced, and honestly, looking at the mechanics of television writing, I am entirely convinced as well that the script is making very subtle, very shady, passive-aggressive digs at the actor for leaving the production high and dry.
It has to be. I wish he gave us more notice, is direct writer's room speak for, we had to rewrite the entire season arc in a single weekend over stale pizza because of a sudden contract negotiation breakdown.
That is exactly what it means.
It is so wonderfully passive-aggressive, and I am fully living for the drama of it all. It feels so petty, and I love petty television production drama.
It's definitely an Easter egg for the viewers who pay attention to the Hollywood trades. When an actor walks, the writers get the final say because they control the universe.
Always cross the writers, and they will ruin your character.
But let's wrap up this extensive recap with the final dramatic reveal of the episode, the back scar and the secret.
Right. So, woven throughout the episode, Liam has been having these dramatic, moody, beautifully lit flashbacks to right after he and Maggie got married.
Very cinematic.
He is rushing off to embed in war-torn areas to do his hardcore journalism, and Maggie is left behind in their apartment feeling entirely abandoned.
Internalizing the belief that he got bored of her the absolute second they tied the knot.
Exactly. And then in the present day, we see Liam alone in his cabin, making a super shady, hushed phone call.
He says to whoever's on the other end of the line, I didn't tell her yet because it wasn't the right time.
A classic stalling tactic.
And then he lovingly, regretfully, stares at a worn photo of him and Maggie in his wallet.
Which is deeply creepy behavior when you are actively refusing to sign the annulment papers that would set her free.
As manipulative.
But then we get the final scene. Maggie decides she needs to clear the air once and for all. She hikes up to Liam's cabin. He is outside, hanging his laundry on a clothesline.
Very rustic, lumberjack core of him.
And he takes his shirt off. Maggie walks up, stops dead in her tracks because she sees a massive, highly traumatic scar completely covering his back.
A huge reveal.
She just stares at the physical evidence of his trauma, her worldview shifting in real time, and then she turns around and walks away without saying a word. End of episode.
It is a textbook soap opera hook.
It got me.
What is the precise origin of the scar? What is the secret he is keeping? It is a manufactured mystery designed to keep us watching, even if we are actively complaining about the slow pacing.
Exactly. It worked. I need to know. And that leads us perfectly into our first structured segment of the chat. Segment 1. Small town, big secrets.
Let's dig in.
Because the central question is, what is actually hiding beneath the cozy maple syrup flannel-wearing exterior of this town? We have established our thesis. People mask their selfish actions as protection. Let's apply it.
Let's start with Liam's literal physical scars. From an analytical standpoint, we know his profession. He is a journalist who embeds in active combat zones.
Right.
The mathematical probability is that the scar is an injury from his time overseas, likely shrapnel or a blast injury. But why hide it from his wife? Why is this physical mark connected to the secret he hasn't told Maggie in 6 entire years?
I react so emotionally to this specific trope because visual scars in television are never just medical injuries. They're always physical manifestations of deep emotional trauma.
Exactly.
He has been carrying this literal jagged mark on his body, and he let Maggie believe for 6 years that he just abandoned her out of boredom or lack of love.
He let her think she was the problem.
Yes. He let her completely internalize the idea that she wasn't enough to keep him home, when in reality he was clearly dealing with something catastrophic that is so profoundly unfair to her. He sacrificed her self-esteem to protect his own secret.
It is a classic, deeply flawed martyr complex.
Yeah.
The psychological mechanism is, I am so damaged by what I have seen and experienced, I must protect her from my darkness by abandoning her entirely.
It's so toxic.
It is cowardice masquerading as nobility. He didn't want to do the hard work of being vulnerable, so he chose flight.
Oh, man.
And this mechanism connects to the broader systemic theme of The Crossing. Everyone in this town is constantly managing everyone else's reality without their consent. Look at Frank and Edna.
Oh my God, yes. Frank and the easement. This is the perfect example of our thesis.
Right. So let's break down what Frank is actually doing. Frank is dealing with this highly complicated easement paperwork for the nature reserve.
Which sounds so boring.
For those unfamiliar with property law, an easement is a legal right to use another person's land for a specific purpose. It is legally dense and highly stressful.
Okay.
Frank is also secretly going out into the woods and checking for more bear traps because he doesn't want Maggie to worry about the danger. He is taking on the entire physical and administrative burden of the town by himself.
He's doing too much.
And simultaneously, he's completely micromanaging his wife. Edna is recovering from a health issue, and Frank literally forbade her from leaving the house to go to the hair salon.
He grounded her.
He restricted her movement. So what happens? Edna has the stylist do a house call.
Good for her. It is so deeply controlling. But he packages the control beautifully wrapped in a bow of care.
It's that suffocating small-town brand of love.
Where people decide what is best for you without actually consulting your autonomy. Frank genuinely thinks he is being a noble protector, but he is treating Edna like she is made of spun glass. She is a strong, fiercely capable Indigenous elder. She has survived decades of life. She can handle getting into a car to go get a trim.
The sheer volume of micromanaging happening in the Crane Bear household is exhausting to witness. It is born out of love and fear, yes, but the mechanism is ultimately about control.
Always.
He is managing his own anxiety about losing her by controlling her environment, which transitions us conceptually into our next topic.
Ooh, yes.
If we're looking at how anxiety and fear manifest as control over the people we love, let's examine the parents. Welcome to segment 2, Parental Patterns Check. Because the family dynamics of this episode are screaming for a licensed family therapist.
This segment is going to trigger me. I can already feel my heart rate rising. Let's talk about which of these dynamics feel deeply, uncomfortably familiar to real life and which are just amplified for television.
First up, Rob actively holding his son Finn back from the Acadian Scholarship Program.
It makes me so mad.
Let's lay out the facts of this scenario. Finn is an intellectually gifted child. He has earned an opportunity to go to an advanced, specialized program that would massively benefit his academic future, and expand his horizons.
A literal scholarship.
Rob, the father, discusses this incredible opportunity with Jane and ultimately decides not to let Finn go. And what is his stated reasoning? Finn needs his dad, and I need to be here to run the diner.
I was yelling. I was physically yelling at my screen, pacing my living room. Are we seriously stunting our children's intellectual and academic growth for our own emotional comfort?
Apparently so.
It is so incredibly selfish. He is using his own son as an emotional crutch because he doesn't want to deal with the quiet, empty space that Finn's absence would create in his daily routine.
He doesn't want to face the empty nest.
He is masking his own severe separation anxiety under the guise of parenting and family unity.
Analytically, you have hit the nail on the head. It is textbook structural codependency.
It is.
Rob is framing the decision as Finn needs his dad, projecting the dependency onto the child. But the psychological reality is Dad needs Finn to feel a sense of purpose.
Which is so much pressure on a kid.
Small towns are notoriously breeding grounds for this specific pathology. It's driven by the fear of brain drain. The underlying fear is that if you let the kids leave, if they see the bigger world and realize their own potential, they will outgrow the small pond they were raised in and never return.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Rob is preemptively clipping his son's wings so the bird can't fly away.
It relates so heavily to real-life guilt-tripping parents. Think about how many people we know from undergrad who didn't take the amazing out-of-state college offer because their mom cried at the kitchen table and said she'd be too lonely.
With thousands of them.
Or the parent who constantly undermines their child's career success because it threatens the established hierarchy of the family dynamic. It is a lived-in, deeply toxic reality for so many people.
It absolutely is.
Rob needs to get a grip, go to therapy, and let that boy thrive.
Agreed. And on the absolute opposite end of that toxic parenting spectrum, we have Ben. If Rob is holding his kid too tight, Ben's parents have completely let go.
Oh, Ben.
Let's talk about the rampant, devastating parentification happening with this teenager.
My heart absolutely breaks for Ben. Even though he stole the watch and dumped it in the dirt, I am so completely soft for him.
He's in a terrible situation.
He opens up to Cal and explains the mechanics of his reality. His dad abandoned them, his mom is working 2 exhausting low-wage jobs just to keep the lights on, and he cannot possibly leave his little sister Tracy because she depends on him for basic survival.
It is a devastating systemic reality. Economically depressed rural areas breed this exact kind of sibling parentification. When the adults fail, or when the economic system completely fails the adults, the children are forced to step into the vacuum and become the caregivers.
Let's look at the neurobiology of this.
Yes, explain this part. Ben is likely 16 or 17 years old. His prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for long-term planning and impulse control, is still years away from being fully developed.
Right, he's just a kid.
Yet, he is carrying the crushing weight of a mortgage, the trauma of a missing father, and the daily logistical nightmare of raising a toddler. His amygdala is locked in chronic fight-or-flight mode.
That's terrifying for a teenager.
No wonder he's lashing out and stealing watches. His brain is completely overwhelmed by survival mechanics.
It is so incredibly heavy to process. He has been robbed of his childhood. And Cal gives him this piece of advice when Rob asks Cal about the situation earlier.
What was the advice?
Cal draws on his own trauma and says, when I was younger, I had to choose between school and my siblings. And he tells Rob to pass on the message. Choose the decision you can live with. Do we actually think that is good advice? Because it feels so bleak.
It's highly pragmatic advice from someone who has lived inside that specific trauma. Cal understands the mechanics of poverty.
I guess he does.
He knows that there is no magical right answer when you are trapped between systemic poverty and deep family obligation. There are only choices and the lifelong consequences you have to carry.
That's just so sad.
It's a brilliant narrative juxtaposition by the writers. Rob is actively choosing to hold his kid back to soothe his own ego. Ben is actively sacrificing his own childhood to keep his sister alive. It highlights the absolute disparity of privilege in this town.
It really does. It makes you realize how intense and dark the undercurrents of Mahone Bay actually are. Which brings us perfectly to segment 3, if we moved here.
Ah, yes. The delusion segment.
Because, we have to insert ourselves into the narrative. We do this with every show we watch. It is our favorite delusion exercise.
The ultimate test of our own survival skills. Let's establish the parameters of the scenario. We are highly trained dentists.
Yes, we are.
The show has explicitly laid out the premise that there is a massive doctor shortage in Mahone Bay and the crossing area. The local clinic is overflowing with patients waiting hours for basic care.
We've seen it.
So logically, you and I decide to pack up our comfortable city lives, move to rural Nova Scotia, and open a boutique, state-of-the-art dental practice right on the main street of Mahone Bay.
Oh my God, I am already mentally designing the clinic. I am picking out the exact shade of sage green linen scrubs we would wear.
Of course you are.
We would have exposed brick, lots of natural light, and we would completely revitalize that town's oral hygiene infrastructure.
Naturally.
But let's be totally real about the social roles we would inevitably fall into. I would be an absolute menace to society. I would thrive financially, but socially, I would be the town gossip hub.
You would be an absolute walking liability to hyper-regulations and patient privacy laws.
I absolutely would be. I'm sorry, but I know myself. Imagine having Edna in the chair, or Lola's old boss, and I'm just doing a routine ultrasonic scaling, clearing away the plaque.
Just digging for tea.
And I am just casually fishing for the town tea. So Edna, open wide. What is really going on with Maggie and that hunky paramedic? Does he sleep at the outpost? Spit for me.
You'd be awful.
I would be handing out entirely unsolicited life and relationship advice while doing complex root canals. I would know everyone's deepest, darkest secrets within 2 business weeks.
You would essentially become the informational nexus of the entire county, the intelligence agency of Mahone Bay.
I really would. What about you?
I, on the other hand, would rapidly become the town villain, or at the very least, the rigid boundaries enforcer. Think about how I would handle an interaction with someone like Quincy Carlson.
Oh, please. I need to hear the exact mechanics of this interaction.
If Quincy Carlson came into our pristine clinic complaining about a minor toothache, but acting like an entitled, insufferable tourist.
Demanding to skip the line.
Exactly. Demanding to skip the line of locals who have been waiting months for an appointment, I would humble him with surgical precision.
I would pay to see that.
And if he lost his precious sentimental watch in our waiting room and demanded that my staff stop sterilizing instruments to look for it, I would look him dead in the eye with absolute zero affect and say, "Sir, this is a medical facility, not a lost and found. If you want me to pause my clinical schedule to spend 20 minutes digging through the magazine rack for your Rolex, I am billing you my hourly operative rate for the time. That will be $600 payable immediately."
You would be terrifying. The locals would whisper about you. They would call you the ice dentist.
I would wear the title with pride.
But honestly, looking at the reality of the situation, how long do we really think we would survive living there before we completely spiraled out of control? Because the absolute lack of boundaries in this town is insane.
9 months. Absolute maximum.
Really? Just 3?
The aesthetic of a small town sounds incredibly cozy until you realize the suffocating reality of the social mechanics. Going to the grocery store to buy tampons and frozen pizza means having a mandatory 20-minute conversation with your high school biology teacher.
About your recent divorce and your fluctuating weight?
Precisely. The total lack of anonymity would drive me back to the city so incredibly fast. I require the cold, indifferent embrace of a major metropolis where my barista doesn't know my mother's maiden name or my credit score.
It is so true. I would absolutely love the gossip access for exactly 1 month, and then the very first time someone tried to micromanage my personal life the way Frank micromanages Edna, I would pack my bags, abandon the clinic, and flee in the dead of night.
We wouldn't last the season.
Cozy chaos is incredibly fun to watch from the safety of my couch, but it is emotionally exhausting to actually live inside of. Okay, we need to move on to the final stretch of our chat today. Segment 4, Snark Squad's soft theories.
This is where we gather the unhinged, unexpected, but low-key, entirely believable theories floating around the internet, and we put them through the analytical ringer. Let's start with theory number 1, pulled straight from the Reddit forums, Liam's secret.
Yes. What is the actual origin of the back scar? What is he hiding?
The prevailing theory from a highly active user named Wilderness Mom, shout out to Wilderness Mom for this dive, is that Liam's journalism in active combat zones resulted in either profound amnesia, where he literally forgot he was married to Maggie,
Stop right there.
or, more darkly, he was taken as a prisoner of war, and he has only just recently been freed or physically healed enough to travel and talk about it.
Okay, I have to push back on this so hard. I am violently, fundamentally rejecting the amnesia trope.
It's a popular theory.
If the writers try to look us in the eye and tell us that he couldn't sign the annulment papers because he got hit on the head with a piece of shrapnel and developed localized amnesia, forgetting he had a wife for 6 entire years,
You'll riot.
I will physically throw my television into a dumpster. It is so 1980s daytime soap opera. It is the laziest possible narrative mechanism.
It is incredibly cliché, I will grant you that. The POW angle, however, has slightly more narrative gravity, and it would biologically explain the massive back scar.
True, the scar is huge.
Perhaps evidence of torture or a severe untreated combat injury. It would also explain the immense paralyzing guilt and why he told the person on the phone it wasn't the right time to tell her.
Oh, that makes sense.
If he was a POW, he didn't abandon her. He was violently ripped away from her. It completely absolves him of the emotional betrayal that Maggie is furious about.
Yeah, I hate that outcome because I want Maggie's anger to be justified. She has earned that rage.
You want her to stay mad at him.
Yes. If he was a POW, she has to immediately drop her anger, forgive him, and nurse him back to health. And that totally ruins the love triangle mechanics with Cal. It forces her back into Liam's arms out of pity and severe trauma bonding.
That is a very astute observation of the romantic pacing.
Ugh, I hate it because it traps her, but analytically, you're right, it's very possible. Okay, moving to theory number 2, the baby trap.
Ah, yes. The theory you have been actively panicking about since the 10-minute mark of this episode.
I am spiraling about this. Liam literally looked at her and said, "I always thought you'd make a good mom." In the mechanics of television writing, that is a loaded, fully cocked gun sitting on the mantelpiece.
Let's hear your theory.
My theory is this. Maggie is going to finally give in to the tension and sleep with Cal, or maybe she already has off screen and she ends up pregnant. But because the legal annulment isn't final and she's spending all this intimate time taking Liam to medical clinics and bandaging his wounds,
Oh, I see where this is going.
Liam is going to claim the baby is his to keep her legally and emotionally trapped.
Yeah.
It is giving extreme daytime talk show Maury Povich, you are not the father energy.
That is unhinged.
And part of me is absolutely here for the messy drama of it, but I also hate it for Cal.
Analytically speaking, you are projecting and giving the writers of Sullivan's Crossing way too much credit for absolute unhinged melodrama.
Am I?
Yes. Look at the network. Look at the tone of the show. They are messy, yes, but they are Hallmark-adjacent, cozy messy.
That's fair.
They are not faking DNA paternity tests on national television messy. The genre mechanics simply don't support it.
You really don't think they'd go there to spike the ratings?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
The good mom comment was a deployed mechanism of emotional manipulation.
Just to mess with her head.
Liam used it to remind Maggie of the idyllic future they had once planned, to soften her emotional defenses so she won't push the annulment paperwork. It was nostalgic bait, not reproductive foreshadowing.
I don't know, babes.
I will bet my actual physical dental license that there is no baby trap this season.
Ooh, we will see. I'm saving this exact audio clip to play back to you when Maggie is sobbing in the outpost bathroom with a positive pregnancy test in episode 8. You heard it here first.
We shall see.
Okay, final theory to analyze. Theory number 3, Sully's exile.
This brings us back to the real-world production T. As we discussed, Scott Patterson left the show. The dominant theory online is that there was significant, irreconcilable bad blood on set between the actor and the showrunners. Fans have thoroughly mapped out that by the end of season 3, Sully wasn't even the primary focal point of the narrative anymore.
Even though the show is named after his place.
Despite the entire show being named after his character's establishment. The theory is that his ego clashed with the writer's room over screen time, leading to a hasty, furious exit, and his character being unceremoniously exiled to Ireland via a single line of dialogue.
I am speculating wildly right now, but based purely on the passive aggression of the script. Maggie saying, "I wish she gave us more notice." I fully, completely believe there was massive diva behavior on set.
It certainly reads that way.
You do not write a line that specifically shady into a final network script unless you were trying to send a direct public message to an actor's agent. I bet he demanded a massive pay bump or more screen time. The producers ran the numbers and said no, and he walked off the lot.
It is giving intense "don't you know who I am" energy.
Completely.
It is highly probable when you look at the mechanics of television contracts. When a titular character is abruptly written out via an off-screen vacation, it almost always points to contract disputes, salary holdouts, or intense interpersonal friction.
The writers always win.
The writers always get the last laugh because they control the universe the characters live in, hence the subtle, permanent digs in the script. It's fascinating how the mechanics of the off-screen drama are often much more compelling and cutthroat than the on-screen plot.
It is, and that is exactly why we do what we do. We dig into the real mess behind the fictional mess. Oh my God, I cannot believe we've been talking for this long. My vodka can is completely empty.
You drank that fast.
It is just watered down ice cubes left, and my brain is absolutely buzzing with theories.
We covered a massive amount of ground today. We analyzed everything from the mundane, irritating mechanics of lost watches and entitled tourists to the severe neurobiological and ethical dilemmas of sibling parentification and the absolute hubristic absurdity of 20-something friendship pacts.
We really did unpack it all. To the Snark Squad, thank you so incredibly much for hanging out on the couch and spiraling with us today. You validate our delusion, you make this day so fun, and we love you for it.
We truly do. And remember, if you enjoyed our descent into analytical madness today, please do us a massive favor.
Please.
Share this show with your messiest friend. The specific friend who loves to observe drama, but absolutely hates participating in confrontation. And don't forget to rate and review us wherever you happen to be listening. It helps the algorithm more than you know.
Yes, please do. We came in here today with a simple, classic cocktail, and somehow we managed to unpack childhood parentification, the mechanics of military trauma, the logistics of legal annulments versus divorces, and our profound defensive love for the career of dentistry.
A very standard Tuesday for us.
It is cozy chaos at its absolute finest. I feel lighter having talked this out, and I hope you do too.
Until our next chat, guard your fortune cookies carefully, and please do not make any blood oath friendship pacts you cannot mathematically keep.
Exactly. Stay cozy, stay chaotic, and we will see you on the Snark side. But honestly, as you go to sleep tonight, I just want you to ask yourself one lingering moral question.
Here we go.
If you were pushed to the absolute edge of your survival mechanisms and you found a stolen watch by a flower bed, would you turn it in to the authorities, or would you just walk away and let the small town chaos consume itself? Think about it. See you next week.